Hello and welcome to this episode of the Gene Keys Exploration. My name is Shellyszigli and I am a Gene Keys guide. I'm excited to be sharing with you an exploration of each of the gene keys, starting from the first gene key, moving our way all the way through to the 64th gene key. Disclaimer, these episodes are really just about sitting with the energy of the gene keys and literally, at times, reading from Richard Rudd's book. The gene keys are so vast and complex, and as a guide, I don't remember much of the information, so we're going to be exploring these gene keys together. You can find my work at www.genekeyrecordkeeper.com. And other than that, I just hope you enjoy the show and enjoy this exploration. Please feel free to share it, leave us a review, and tell us how this exploration was for you. All right, hello and welcome to the gene key number 3. Today we're going to be digging into this third gene key. I listened earlier today to Richard Rudd's audio and his description of the third gene key, which you can find at www.genekeys.com. It was beautiful and really grounded me into the energy to share with you today the gene key number 3. So in the book, the gene key number 3 is called Through the Eyes of a Child. And remember, I am reading from the Gene Keys Embracing Your Higher Purpose book by Richard Rudd. And yeah, here we go. So the gene key number 3, the shadow is chaos. Now, as with all the gene keys, whether the gene key is in your hologenetic profile or not, it is relevant to you, it's relevant to me, and it's relevant to the collective conscious. So the chaos is the part of our energy, the part of our worlds, the part of our lives that we find ourselves in when we are reaching outwards, looking to avoid solutions. It was really interesting because when I was listening to Richard's audio, the way that he took it was in the direction of when things are chaotic for most humans, there's this tendency to distract ourselves and look to something else, to start over on something until the chaos comes in that realm and then do the same thing, right? Instead of being with it and overcoming it, we tend to just get lost in the distractions. So I'm excited to dig deeper into this gene key today. The shadow of the third gene key is chaos. The gift is innovation, and the Siddhi is innocence. So I'm going to read from the very first paragraph here. The third shadow lies at the core of all our beliefs that the human individual is basically powerless in comparison to nature or the infinite. This is the programming domain of both religion and science, the two cornerstones of human belief. On the one hand, we have religion, which separates humanity from nature by the introspection of a god or gods, thereby creating a division in our entire unconscious reality. This reality must be based upon the worship of either our own or someone else's projection of what God is. Such a situation, in turn, creates the notion of free will and its judgment by the presiding deity, right? So this is who is the God of the person or the community that is worshiping it. Who is it? What are their rules? What are their attributes, right? On the other hand, we have science, which sees our nature as predetermined by our genes, which come pre-programmed only for survival, thus leaving all human beings victims of the vagaries of chance. In either scenario, the individual for survival, thus leaving all human beings victims of the vagaries of chance, either scenario comes off badly. We are either shown divinity, only to be denied it, or we are shown freedom and then placed in a world of merciless competition in which only the lucky or strong can thrive. Perhaps more than any other shadow, The third shadow captures the essence of the role of the human DNA through an understanding of the structure of the single cell, the prime unit of life on our planet. Through an understanding of the structure of the single cell, we see how both of the above belief systems have grown out of a very natural, organic progression that has brought to us exactly where we stand now, at a great evolutionary fork. Yes, we are at a fork. As a planetary consciousness, we now stand before a chasm, and humanity's response to the threshold must either lead to chaos or it must lead to cosmos. Never before in history has the future of our entire planet and all its organisms hung in the balance of human behavior. Wow, that is powerful. It is interesting to note that the words chasm and chaos are derived from the same root. Since the third gene key governs what we humans understand as chaos, it is also intriguing to note that that original meaning of the word chaos is closer to primordial space. So the meaning of the word chaos is closer to primordial space. It was only due to a misunderstanding based on fear that the word came to be equated with disorder. Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute, because I feel like we are seeing in our world real time. Again, I'm recording in 2024. I didn't share with you why I'm recording in 2024 and not 2022 like the previous two episodes. But the gene key number 3, the first round that I went through, I was incredibly sick, and the recording has terrible audio. My children are laughing and screaming and crying in the background. It was actually pure chaos. So I'm re-recording this gene key as we speak in 2024. Now, in 2024, we are seeing in real time some of the upheaval and the chaos that Richard is referring to and that this third gene key represents. The chaos of fight for power, fight for whose beliefs are the right beliefs, and authority as to even what a human life is worth, right? If we look over to what is occurring right now in Gaza, we can see that there is a clear line where we as the human race still condone and even in some ways allow the killing of another human for reasons that contradict our own belief systems. Now, we can listen to the media and look at that situation as this is a nation protecting themselves from another nation. But when you get down to the nitty-gritty, this is politics. What's happening in Gaza today is politics. It is politics between two religious thought systems. And these two thought systems are found throughout our entire world. And, we don't have to get too deep into that, but the basis of Judaism and the basis of Islam are very different. There's a different objective, and even of Christianity. These three monotheistic religions have different ideas of who the chosen ones are, who the ones who are going to ascend to heaven are, and who the ones are that are going to quite literally burn in hell. So we have this one picture, which is very real in our reality. And then we have this other picture of science where we're learning about evolution and timelines, and our science is so accurate and so on point that most people who are in the sciences or understand the sciences reject completely the idea of there being a higher power. Why? Because they can see the flaws of the logic that are connected to these ideas and ideologies from these religions. So there's this huge, massive divide, and the human race is trying to decide where they fit. Do I fit here? Do I fit here? And to be very real, humans are very committed to seeing what they believe unfold in the world. So that's what we're seeing right now. And we're going to continue to see, in my opinion, we're going to continue to see this conflict. I always say the next 20 years. I'm not sure what other people are picking up, but I really do believe these ideologies have to come head to head before they find a middle ground. And likely that middle ground won't be until our children become in charge, and their awareness and openness, I feel, this is my opinion, will be able to blend both science and spirituality together in one. So we're going to keep going here. Let's see here. So there's the repressive nature of this shadow, chaos, and there's the reactive nature. Now, the repressive nature, the word is anal, and I'm going to read a little bit from the book directly about this shadow. Our deep-seated fear that life is simply based on chance leads to one of the first great human control mechanisms, that of anal retention. Despite the discoveries made by Freud regarding this phenomenon, it has been known for millennia by many systems of yoga and meditation. Fear activates a very subtle restriction of the muscle around the anus, which in turn affects our entire breathing pattern. As our breathing becomes shallower, the fear manifests through our need to maintain control over our lives. Almost all human beings suffer from some level of anal retention, ranging from mild to acute. It is only when we begin to touch the core of our primal fear within that our system begins to let go of this deep-seated tensing of our being. The more we feel and allow the fear, the more we let go into the embrace of the cosmos, and the more we realize how deeply we are held and protected by it. So when I read that, I feel very much the shadow. And many of you who are listening to this know what the shadow is. We're very aware in the spiritual world of the shadow. But when we resist the shadow, when we resist the truth, even if the truth is ugly, which a lot of times the truth isn't pretty, we end up resisting. And Richard's talking about here the literal, physical thing that occurs when we are resisting, literal anal retention. And if we look at that part, and again, if anyone's going to like, ew, that's gross, we need to expand bigger than that, right? That's the bottom of our root would be where the anal is. So it's where our energy begins to move through our main system of energy centers. So if that is blocked or tight and we are breathing shallow or heavy, we are blocking the life force from running through our body and moving through us and connecting us to our birthright, which is the energy of the cosmos, like he says here. Now, the reactive nature is disordered. The adverse reaction to our fear of life is to express it outwardly as rage. The result of this is the creation of the very thing that terrifies us, chaos and disorder. These natures have absolutely no predictable direction, rhythm, or purpose. They bring into the world the very vibration that terrifies the repressed nature, sometimes in the form of aggression, sometimes anarchy, and always destruction. Again, there are varying degrees of this disease, from the mild to the acute. Every time we stop trusting in life and believe in our fears, we begin to co-create the vibration of chaos. Whenever that fear turns into anger, even in the most mundane circumstances, it carries a destructive force that will inevitably come back to haunt us. In this sense, all anger that is not owned fully strengthens the frequency of the third shadow of the world. Wow, right? Again, we see this. We see the reactive. We're seeing in real time in 2024 this happen, whether this is between Russia and Ukraine, whether this is between Gaza and Israel, whether this is between even our community leaders, our politicians. This aggression is everywhere in our homes, right? In our relationships. This reactive nature of the third shadow, chaos, is everywhere. So what I think I want to point out here is that Richard's very clear that any level of this shadow, when it's not owned, and what does that mean when it's not owned? When people aren't taking responsibility for their anger and even personalizing their feelings, it's going to come out and manifest into the world. So, for example, if Israel were to have been attacked, and instead of retaliating and reacting and, going full out crazy, they said, hey, this is wrong, and we're not going to stand in this. We need to actually solve this problem between Hamas, which Hamas, let's be straight up, is connected to Islamic thinking. It is the literal interpretation of the Quran and the Islamic belief system from the lens of a people who have lived generation after generation in trauma. So I speak about this all the time. Religion has a high octave and a low octave. And depending on the way of life and the resources and the love and the peace that a nation experiences will determine how that religion is shared with the world, right? And Hamas is the representation of a very angry, very hurt. The only thing they have is this belief that God will save them, and they've become warriors in that sense from that low octave. So it's important to understand that there are different ways of living from a belief system, but the whole nature and environment is very important. Okay, so, whoa, the shadow of chaos, we all know it, even the chaos inside of ourselves, right? Where when there's something that needs to be owned in our own body, in our own reality, and we resist it, what do? We project outwards. We make everybody else the problem. We go into victimhood, and we create all sorts of manipulative stuff, right, in the outer world. That is all a representation of the third shadow. Now, the third gift is innovation. Now, I'm not going to read from the book right now because I feel like when I listened to Richard's recording, it was just so powerful. And I have a lot inside of me that I can just share when it comes to innovation. He had said that innovation is life. Life and living, being on this planet, being human, is living in a state of innovation. We are constantly problem solving. We are constantly growing. We are constantly inventing all of these different things. We're creating. All of that is innovation. So innovation is literally, and I think he said something very close to this, life itself, life in motion. So the innovation of our species and the collective is what I talk about a lot. If you read or listen to some of my readings, I talk a lot about doing and bringing our spirituality onto the physical plane, being and creating and doing with the energy that we have and the knowledge that we have from the higher realms, and bringing it down to planet Earth. So let's read a little bit. Let's randomly look here. Okay, so the gift of innovation is far more exciting than simply being creative. It implies that you have permanently escaped the fear-based perceptive of the shadow frequency. Oh my God, that's powerful, right? Innovation thrives on optimism. Yes, it does. Although this is not the kind of optimism that is built upon hope, true optimism is the dynamic energy of the heart of creation. Through the third gift, you begin to tap into the higher aspects within your own DNA. It is not that the DNA itself changes, but the frequency passing through it activates its hidden programming. This is how single-celled life gave way to cooperative life, and it is how human selfishness must and will give way to collective consciousness. The whole is far more powerful than its individual human components. That is the rub. Wow. And this is the whole idea, right? In every spiritual community, they talk about this. This is the idea, not every spiritual community. Let's get that straight. Okay. The ones that see humanity progressing and growing, right? And evolving. We believe, and there's evidence to back this, which I can't share with you because I don't really know, but I've seen it before and you probably have too, where the more of us that wake up, the more of us that tune in, and the more of us that decide to create on planet Earth from that awareness and from that point, eventually it will become the dominant way of being. That is truth, and that is why even when things seem chaotic or seem dark or seem hopeless, that's why we keep going, because the more of us that keep going, we override that program that says apocalypse is coming, the end of the end of days, and all of these things, right, are coming. So it's really important that we not only understand that this is beneficial and needed, but we understand that everything we do to progress forward, to better ourselves, to innovate in our own personal daily lives even, is shifting the collective. We do not need to be doing something big and huge, but we just need to be in that space of creating from the truth of who we are, the high octave of who we are on the physical plane, and the ripple effect of that is just amazing. So, the third gene key Siddhi is innocence. Okay, we're going to read a little bit about this. I'm not going to just go off on this. Where should we go here? Here we go. Humanity will change from within, as life always has. It is shaped by its own environment. If it becomes a threat to that environment, then life replays the message back into its cellular structure, causing it to mutate a more effective program. This is not a decision that can be made by humanity, but by the whole organism. There are no losers in this game because every cell innocently contributes to its own unique information to the whole. In this process of mutation, new life codes are activated, and any cells that do not mutate will simply die off. This is a total natural and organic process that is already beginning to occur in humanity. We fear it because we do not trust our own innocence. The great human fear is of losing our own uniqueness. If we lost that and became an amalgamated soup, it would indeed be a step backwards in evolution. However, evolution does not travel backwards. It only knows progress. By giving up our own individual identity, we actually create another greater individual identity that is both collective and individual at the same time. Interesting. Okay, so I feel like what he's saying there is at the core of every human is our ego and our ego self, and the perspective of I need to differentiate myself. I need to protect myself. I need to, right? There's the I. And I feel like what he's saying, and maybe I don't totally know, but let's dig into this, is that fear of losing the I is what can cause a lot of us from stepping into this world of collective unity, even in thought, right? This world of every hurting person, I'm hurt, right? I guess what I mean by that is this idea that we look, like, for example, if we looked at Gaza right now and the family that loses 3 of their family members. Right now, most, especially Western society, not all, and we are shifting, it is changing, can kind of bypass that because it seems far. It doesn't seem like it's right here. And when we're tapped into that collective oneness, we understand that that child or that family that hurts is us hurting. We don't separate ourselves from it. So that idea can be very difficult because we're like, oh, I don't want to welcome more pain. I don't want to feel that. But in actuality, when we connect to that consciousness and we understand that and we begin to move from a different place, there's actually more fulfillment and there's actually a thread of our soul that begins to have the space to come forward. So as the ego self begins to go backwards and we begin to open up our thought and our actions and our work more to thinking of the whole, there is actually this deeper emergence of the I, but it is the I with the divine. I hope that makes sense. Even in my own journey, there's so much in the communities online of, oh, let the ego go. And there's a lot of talk and it's easy to talk these concepts, but very much what I see happen, and even in myself, is that once we know the quote unquote correct lingo, it's easy to speak one way and act another way. So oftentimes our ego mind will actually trick us into thinking we are a certain way. Well, it's actually just projecting the ego through the filter or lens of that concept. I hope that makes sense. But yes, what do I say? I forget how I say it, but oftentimes I'll say something like, the ego is very good at putting on the hat of the spiritual master or hiding behind spiritual concepts or knowledge. I guess before I close this, what I want to leave with, because I keep hearing this question come up, like, how do we know if we're operating in ego or if we're operating in divinity? This is the best thing that I have that's coming forward, is when we are present and in the moment. We're not thinking about what we need to do or what we're going to do. We're not striving to cover something up, but we're just being. That is the place where truth comes forward, where soul comes forward. And the more we become present to each second and each moment, and we're really here, we're really there, wherever we are, like whatever we're doing, we're fully there. We're not thinking about, grabbing the coffee. We're not thinking about what we got to do later, but we're fully there in the moment. And we begin to create and follow and live in that way. That is when the ego starts to go backwards because it doesn't have a place to be heard because we're trusting in the moment and we're operating in the presence of the moment. So anytime that mind starts to come up and tell us what we need to do, and we need to think about this and do this, and we can really be sure that that is most definitely our ego mind. And remind ourselves like, hey, I am soul walking on planet Earth. I can drop into presence and I'm safe to drop into presence. And not only am I safe, but if I drop into this mystical world of presence, right? And even as I'm saying that, I'm looking outside and I'm seeing the blades of grass and the ants moving in the grass. I am able to follow the intuitive rhythm of soul, of source, when I am connected to that moment. So when I'm saying I'm talking about you as well. Come into the moment. And when you're operating from the moment, you will find that the divine, God, source, whatever you want to call that, your own intuitive nature will give you the keys that you need to create from this place of divine innovation. So thank you so much for listening today. Again, if you don't know your hologenetic profile, which is just essentially your unique gene keys, go to www.genekeys.com and create your hologenetic profile. It's going to be really useful for you. And I look forward to continuing this journey with you. And yeah, have the most beautiful day. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for joining us in this episode of the Gene Keys Exploration. If you would like to purchase the Gene Key Record Keeper, please go to www.genekeyrecordkeeper.com, or you can go to Amazon and search Gene Key Record Keeper, and you can purchase your very own copy of a sacred companion tool as you learn, track, and move through your gene keys. Have the most beautiful day, and we'll look forward to connecting with you in the next episode. Bye-bye.